Antioch Peveril. Every legend needs a fool, and in the story of the Elder Wand, the fool was Antioch Peveril. He was the eldest in the tale of the three brothers, the one who asked death not for wisdom or love or even immortality, but for the most powerful wand that ever existed. That single decision set the tone for centuries of bloodshed. Antioch was a gifted duelist, but he had one fatal flaw: pride. He didn't want to protect himself with the wand, he wanted to boast about it. The story says he left death's presence rejoicing in his new power, which already tells you everything you need to know about his fate. He strutted into the nearest village, challenged a rival wizard, and obliterated him with ease. It wasn't even a fair fight. Then, drunk on his own victory, he bragged about his unbeatable wand in the local inn. That night, while Antioch slept off his own ego, another wizard slit his throat and stole the wand. Just like that, the invincible master became the first corpse in its bloody history. Emeric the Evil. Centuries later, the Elder Wand resurfaced in the hands of a man whose very name sounded like a warning: Emeric the Evil. He was a dark wizard from the Middle Ages, known for terrorizing southern England. With the Elder Wand, Emeric was practically unstoppable. He duelled, killed, and conquered his way through towns, leaving behind whispers of a death stick that could not be defeated. But here's the thing about absolute power: it breeds challenges. Every victory draws someone new out of the shadows, and Emeric had no shortage of rivals who wanted to test him. His reign of terror lasted years, but eventually he met a wizard even more ruthless than himself: Egbert the Egregious. The duel between Emeric and Egbert became the stuff of legend: massive bursts of magic, spells that lit up the countryside, and in the end, a death that no one mourned. Emeric was killed, and with his death, the Elder Wand passed to another: Egbert the Egregious. Egbert was driven by one thing: glory. He'd heard the rumours of the death stick, seen what Emeric did with it, and decided that if anyone was going to wield such power, it would be him. Egbert challenged Emeric, defeated him in a battle that supposedly shook the hills of Yorkshire, and claimed the Elder Wand for himself. For a while, Egbert became the most feared duellist alive. He used the wand to dominate tournaments, crush rivals, and prove that no wizard could best him. But Egbert's story fades out rather abruptly. Some say he died peacefully, which almost feels wrong for an Elder Wand owner. Others claim he disappeared after being defeated by an unknown wizard. Either way, his end proves one thing: even for someone called the Egregious, the wand's loyalty was temporary. Godelot. Where previous owners sought power through violence, Godelot sought it through knowledge. He wasn't a warmonger. He was a scholar, a dark one, yes, but still a thinker. He used the Elder Wand not just to fight, but to learn. Godelot owned the wand during the medieval era and was known for studying the darkest corners of magic. With the Elder Wand in his grasp, he wrote one of the most infamous books in wizarding history: Magic Most Evil. It's the same book that centuries later Tom Riddle used to learn about Horcruxes. So yeah, Godelot's influence didn't die with him, it echoed straight into Voldemort's hands. But Godelot's end was, fittingly, tragic. His own son, Hereward, turned on him. Accounts say Hereward locked Godelot in his cellars and left him there to die, taking the Elder Wand for himself. It was betrayal in its purest form. Hereward. The story goes that Hereward lived in the shadow of his father's genius. He watched Godelot grow powerful, respected, and feared, all while clutching that mysterious wand that seemed to bend the world to his will. But where Godelot sought knowledge, Hereward saw only opportunity. One day he snapped. Jealousy turned to rage, and rage turned to murder. He trapped his father in the cellar, leaving him to die alone. What happened to Hereward after that is mostly unknown. The records only tell us that after taking the wand, Hereward disappeared from the major chronicles of wizarding war and power. And that's the irony of Hereward's story. For all the power he gained, history barely remembers him. His name survives only because of the cruelty that got him there. Barnabas Deverill. After being lost for years, the Elder Wand re-emerged in the 1700s in the hands of a wizard known as Barnabas Deverill. According to legend, he got the Elder Wand after defeating another powerful wizard in a duel. Charismatic, stylish, and absurdly powerful, he used the Elder Wand to carve out a name for himself across Europe. He wasn't exactly evil, but he wasn't noble either. Think of him as the magical equivalent of a warlord in fine robes. He used the wand to enforce his dominance, settling disputes through duels that usually ended with someone else on the floor. For a time, he seemed untouchable. But Barnabas's charm didn't save him from the wand's curse. Power attracts challengers, and Deverill's fame painted a target on his back. Eventually, one of those challengers, a dark and cunning wizard named Loxias, came for him. Their duel became legendary, and when it was over, Deverill lay dead, his gentleman's wand now in the hands of a madman. Loxias. If the Elder Wand had a press agent, Loxias would be the one who gave it its most notorious branding, the Death Stick. This man didn't just use the wand, he glorified it. He wanted the world to fear its name. Loxias was a true dark wizard, ruthless and theatrical. He slaughtered anyone who defied him and turned the Elder Wand into a symbol of absolute terror. But, like every other fool who thought he could own it forever, Loxias eventually met his end. The records are unclear on who killed him. Some say a wizard named Arcus. Others claim it was someone called Livius. Maybe both fought over it, and history simply lost the details in the chaos. Either way, Loxias's legacy endured. He showed the world that the Elder Wand wasn't just a weapon, it was a curse dressed as a prize. Arcus or Livius. And now we reach the part of the story that history can't quite agree on. After Loxias's death, two names emerged from the dust, Arcus and Livius. According to some accounts, Arcus killed Loxias to gain possession of the wand, while others insist it was Livius. There are even whispers that both of them fought over it, killing each other in the process, and the wand simply moved on to the next ambitious fool. This uncertainty says a lot about the wand itself. By this point, it had become more myth than memory. Its trail was littered with corpses and half-truths. No one could say for sure who held it at any given time, only that wherever it appeared, death followed. The story of Arcus and Livius is less about names and more about what the Elder Wand represents, the erasure of those who chase it. You can own it, you can wield it, you can even win with it. But the moment it leaves your hand, history forgets you. Gregorovitch. A renowned wandmaker from Eastern Europe, Gregorovitch was fascinated by magical craftsmanship, always chasing the perfect wand. When he somehow came into possession of the Elder Wand, it was like finding the holy grail of wand lore. Unlike those before him, Gregorovitch didn't use it to conquer or destroy. He wanted to study it, to unlock its secrets, replicate its power, maybe even craft something equally legendary. But that was his mistake, believing he could tame what no one else ever could. Word got out that Gregorovitch had the wand, and that was all it took. Wizards came hunting, thieves lurked around his workshop, and one night a young intruder broke in. The man stunned Gregorovitch, stole the wand, and vanished. That thief was Grindelwald. Gregorovitch never recovered from that humiliation. He spent years trying to prove he was still the rightful owner, but it didn't matter. The wand had already chosen a new master, one who would drag the world to the brink of magical war. Grindelwald. Grindelwald wasn't just powerful, he was dangerously persuasive. Armed with the Elder Wand, he set out to liberate wizards from the secrecy of the Statute of Secrecy, claiming he wanted a new world order where magic ruled openly over muggles. But let's be real, Grindelwald didn't want freedom, he wanted control. With the wand in his hand, he was unstoppable. His dueling skills became legendary, his charisma unmatched. He built an army of followers, spreading fear across Europe. The Elder Wand became his symbol, not a tool, but a statement. To Grindelwald, it wasn't just the Death Stick, it was proof that destiny favoured him. But there was one man who could match him, Albus Dumbledore. Their eventual duel in 1945 wasn't just a battle between good and evil, it was personal. They'd once been friends, even shared the same ideals. But Dumbledore saw through Grindelwald's obsession. Their legendary duel ended with Grindelwald's defeat and imprisonment, and the Elder Wand's allegiance shifted once again. Albus Dumbledore. When Dumbledore became master of the Elder Wand, something changed. For the first time in its bloody history, the wand was in the hands of someone who didn't want to exploit it. Dumbledore didn't use it to conquer, he used it to protect. It amplified his already immense power, and he wielded it with calm precision, rarely revealing its true identity. But even Dumbledore couldn't escape the wand's curse. He knew it was dangerous, that its loyalty was a ticking time bomb waiting to pass to someone else. And so, he devised a plan. When the time came, he would die undefeated, ensuring the Wand's power would die with him. It almost worked. He arranged his death with Severus Snape, but fate had other plans. On that tower at Hogwarts, it wasn't Snape who defeated Dumbledore. It was Draco Malfoy who disarmed him moments before his death. Dumbledore's grand plan unravelled in an instant, and without realising it, Draco became the true master of the Elder Wand. Even Dumbledore, the greatest wizard of his age, couldn't outthink the Wand's twisted logic. Draco Malfoy. It's ironic, really. Draco Malfoy, the privileged schoolboy desperate for approval, became the master of the most powerful wand in existence, and he didn't even know it. When Draco disarmed Dumbledore on the astronomy tower, he unknowingly claimed mastery. He never touched the Elder Wand, never even knew he owned it. But the Wand's loyalty isn't about possession, it's about defeat. In that split second, the power shifted. What's fascinating about Draco's role is how unintentional it is. He wasn't after power or domination. He was just a scared teenager caught in a deadly plan. Yet his small act changed the course of the war. Because later, when Harry Potter disarmed Draco at Malfoy Manor, that same invisible bond passed on again. The Elder Wand doesn't choose the most ambitious or the strongest. It chooses whoever fate allows to win. And that randomness is exactly what makes it so dangerous. Lord Voldemort. No one embodied obsession quite like Voldemort. When he broke into Dumbledore's tomb and took the Elder Wand, he believed he'd finally found the key to ultimate dominance. He thought he was invincible, and for once, he wasn't wrong about the wand's power. The problem was, it wasn't his. He killed Snape, thinking that would make him master, but the wand had already pledged allegiance to Harry. That's why, during the final battle, every spell Voldemort cast with it faltered, even his killing curse. It's the perfect irony. The man who spent his life defying death was destroyed by a wand that refused to recognize him. The Elder Wand has no patience for arrogance. Voldemort believed he could own it, but like everyone before him, he never understood it. The wand doesn't serve power, it serves victory. And in that final moment, the only true master standing was the boy he'd spent years trying to kill. Harry Potter. When the dust settled, Harry Potter stood holding the Elder Wand, the final link in a chain of greed, betrayal, and murder that stretched back centuries. But unlike every other owner, Harry didn't crave its power. He didn't even want to keep it. He used it once to repair his own broken wand and then made the choice no one else ever did. In the films, he snaps it in half and throws it away. In the books, he returns it to Dumbledore's tomb, vowing that when he dies a natural death, the wand's power will die with him. That decision ended the curse. After centuries of being passed from killer to killer, the Elder Wand finally found peace. Not because it was defeated, but because someone finally said no. Harry's ownership was the quietest but the most powerful of all. He proved that true mastery isn't about control or conquest. It's about the courage to let power go.